There are moments when the human mind silently surrenders to an invisible force, subtle, almost comforting, that begins as a simple relief in the midst of chaos. A decision made in the background, a small escape. In the beginning, it seems harmless. A single drink, a swipe, a distraction. But what once felt temporary becomes a habit, and habit, repeated day after day, reshapes identity. What was once relief becomes a prison. What was once distraction becomes dependency. What was once a choice becomes compulsion. And this is where addiction is born, not as a moral failure or a character flaw, but as a desperate attempt to fill a void the soul cannot name. Behind every addiction, there's a wound. Invisible, silent, hidden beneath the surface of daily life. A wound that bleeds in the soul even while the body smiles. And it's this wound, this suffocating emptiness, that we'll explore. With the help of two great minds, Carl Gustav Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who decoded the unconscious, and Dr. Gabor Maté, the Canadian physician who spent decades working with addiction on the front lines. For Jung, addiction was the cry of the shadow, the part of ourselves we suppress. For Maté, every addiction is rooted in emotional pain, often buried deep in childhood. But what is that pain? Where does it come from? Why do so many try to soothe it through alcohol, drugs, sex, work, social media, food, shopping, or control? And more importantly, how can we escape this endless cycle? Let's begin with a truth most people never hear. Addiction is not a choice. It's not a sign of weakness. It's not a failure of willpower. It's a survival strategy, a response to something that feels unbearable. Addictions don't arise from pleasure, they arise from pain. As Maté puts it, don't ask why the addiction. Ask why the pain. That shift in perspective changes everything. Because the real question isn't, why does she drink? Or, why can't he stop gambling? The real question is, what did this person go through that made reality so painful she needed to escape it? Jung believed that addiction is a spiritual substitute, a distorted attempt to reconnect with something meaningful, something greater. The addict, even unknowingly, seeks wholeness, but lacking tools for inner transformation, they reach for what's immediate and numbing: substances, behaviors, toxic routines. It's like trying to feed a starving soul with emotional fast food. It works for a moment, and then poisons everything after, and so the cycle begins. Pain leads to addiction. Addiction deepens the pain. Pain demands more addiction, a looping spiral that seems impossible to break. But it isn't, and that's what we'll uncover today. In Jung's psychology, the human psyche is a vast system of conscious and unconscious forces. Everything you repress, your fears, anger, trauma, shame, gets pushed into the shadow. But the shadow doesn't disappear. It waits, and eventually it returns. Sometimes as dreams, sometimes as anxiety, sometimes as addiction. For Jung, addiction can be the shadow's scream. See me. Don't ignore me. I'm part of you. But instead of turning inward, most people run outward. They drink, they binge, they overwork, they scroll, they buy, they hook up. They keep running, not towards joy, but away from pain. Through decades working with people struggling with addiction, Dr. Maté observed a consistent pattern: childhood trauma. But trauma doesn't always mean dramatic abuse. Often it's subtle: emotional neglect, an absent parent, conditional love, repressed expression, the lack of safety. These early experiences teach a child that their feelings are dangerous, their needs too much, and that to survive they must numb themselves. And so as adults, they return to the only strategy they've ever known: avoidance, anesthesia, escape. Here's the painful truth: addiction is a solution, a destructive one, yes, temporary, but still a solution, a coping mechanism for a deeper, unresolved wound. And this is the key to compassion. No one chooses to become an addict, but every addict in their own way is trying to survive. And what about our culture? We live in an age where emptiness is commercialized, where silence is feared, where every discomfort is numbed with consumption, where stillness is suspicious and burnout is glorified. We scroll endlessly, consume blindly, chase distractions compulsively, anything to avoid sitting with what is. It's no wonder addiction thrives. It's not just a personal crisis, it's a cultural epidemic, which is why healing is not simply about quitting the substance or behavior. It's about understanding why it became necessary. It's about turning inward, facing the inner wounds, reclaiming the forgotten self. Jung taught that healing begins with awareness, the moment we stop denying and start seeing. When we admit, I've been running from something inside me. That moment, as painful as it is the first true step toward freedom. Because denial feeds addiction, but awareness begins to starve it. Yet awareness is only the beginning. You must sit with the pain, truly sit with it. No distraction, no judgment, no escape. Because every unacknowledged pain becomes a scream, and every silenced scream becomes compulsion. Healing starts when we stop running and start listening. Maté calls this the truth-based healing process, the truth of who you are, of what you endured, of how your strategies once protected you, but now imprison you. This is not easy, but it's deeply liberating. Because when you understand the purpose of your addiction, you stop hating yourself for having it. And self-compassion, not shame, is what opens the door to real change. No addiction exists in a vacuum. It feeds on shame, isolation, and hopelessness. That's why reconnection is essential. Reconnection with your body, with your feelings, with safe people, with nature, with silence, with your soul. Jung believed no one heals alone because no one breaks alone. Addiction is lonely, but healing is relational. Surrounding yourself with people who truly see you, without judgment, is crucial. Therapy, support groups, honest friendships, spiritual guidance, anything that brings you back into connection with the world and with your own heart. Because healing is not just about stopping a behavior, it's about becoming whole again, rebuilding trust in yourself, creating an inner space where pain doesn't need to be hidden anymore. Most people wait until they hit rock bottom, but you don't have to. You can start now, this moment, and it begins with a question. What part of me is crying to be heard? The answer may hurt, but ignoring it hurts more. The longer you run from yourself, the stronger the addiction becomes. But the closer you get to yourself, the more powerless it becomes, because addiction in the end is just a messenger, saying something in you needs your attention. And when you listen, the cycle begins to break. This is the invitation, not to fight your addiction, but to journey through it, to let it guide you to the very thing it was trying to replace, a sense of meaning, connection, wholeness. Carl Jung and Dr. Gabor Maté don't offer quick fixes. They offer a map, a path, a way of seeing addiction not as a death sentence, but as a sacred call to transformation. And if you're hearing these words now, maybe that call is for you.